Спасибо.
Yes, and again, good morning, everybody. And I must say, I'm also, just as Dr. Hansen here, I'm very much surprised to see that so many people are here, because in my humble opinion, I guess there are better things to do. Saturday morning, just being here. But so, again, thank you very much for being here, and it's my pleasure.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do you have, should we have a handout for this morning?
Yes, of course, the second one, the one which starts with traditional sources, concentrate on issues, and blah, blah, blah.
Maybe we don't all have it.
This is basically, I mean, it is a lot here, but maybe if once have a chance can study those things in a more detailed manner. I will.
So let me interrupt and ask, who doesn't have a handout? Just hands up so we can make them. Just 3. Okay. And Will, do you have a copy?
No, I don't.
Okay, so 4. All right, thanks.
I will refer to those eventually, and so yeah, they're kind of important in a way. So today's topic is well, Tangut religion, yeah, so to speak, and that is something which caught scholarly attention for basically from the beginning of the Tangut studies. This is also quite understandable, because the earliest texts which were studied by the linguists or by historians in Tangut, those were translations of the Buddhist sutras. So more or less the first publication which made sense of the Tangut language, that was in 1905, if I remember correctly, and that was by Monsieur Maurice, the translator in the French embassy in Beijing, who obtained a copy of the Tangut translation of the Lotus Sutra. That's from the Yuan dynasty. I will just show it around. That's how it looks like. It has been recovered recently, because it was considered lost. Was recovered recently in Jagiellonian Library in Poland. And yeah, so one of the colleagues went there and got the pictures of that. So as one can see, it's the Miao Huajin, the Lotus Sutra of the Wonderful Law, and chapter 5, yeah, the Juan 5. This is the actually the first text to be studied with the parallel edition. It was a very lucky occasion in a way, because parts of the text which Maurice studied, that's a Yuan dynasty publication, that's not from the Xixia period. But the important thing was that the edition was supplied with line-to-line Chinese characters, yeah, substitutions. Therefore, Maurice had a chance to more or less understand, or to identify the text at first, and then to read it. So the first observations about the nature of the Tangut language and the word order, and the first observations on the Tangut phonetics, they basically date from that period. Then Prince Bonaparte, yeah, the French.
Oh, sorry, when was that?
Early 20th century, I think 1905. And then Prince Bonaparte published the multilingual inscription on the Juyingguan Pass, which is not far from Beijing and the Changshan, yeah, and also this gave a certain understanding about the Tangut phonetics, about how the Tangut language actually works. Now, if we, and those texts were all of religious nature. Now, when sometime, I mean, can't really tell the exact date when this happened, the remainders, the ruins in Yinchuan, which is in Ningxia Hui Autonomous Region, those were finally identified as the remainders of the Tangut capital. And sort of like excavations and research and surveys, they were starting to take place. And what came out immediately, that most of what remained, including Tangut imperial tombs, but also the buildings surviving, they are all the ones which survived. Yeah, they are all Buddhist structures. Of course, the most so here there is a little, I would say, collection of the Tangut archaeological, well, of the Tangut buildings or Buddhist temples. So this one right here is Hongfo Si, the Hongfo temple, which is not so far from Yinchuan. And this, if I'm not mistaken, this particular lovely statue of a Buddhist monk was recovered there, as together with some other pieces also of Buddhist nature. Now, that one over here is particularly lovely. Yeah, that's from the Yulinku. Yeah, that's the picture of the chain of the Tangut state preceptor. The one below, this is a very, I would say, a mysterious place called Haimudong, a cave of Vajravarahi, yeah, of the Haime, of the pig. And Haimu Vajravarahi, yeah, Dorje Pamo, one of the tantric deities who was very popular in the Tangut state. And quite recently there was a publication that another collection of Tangut texts, also of Buddhist nature, was recovered there. So that's the one below. The things which were known from the start, of course, yeah, are these two very famous. That's the very famous Chantian temple, Chantian Si. Chantian Si, which now houses the Institute of Archaeology of the Ningxia Hui Autonomous Region. Yeah, that's the one over here. Supposedly built by the Empress Liang, the mother of the second, well, of the, say, yeah, the wife of the second and mother of the third Tangut emperor, yeah, Liangzhou and Binchang. That's the place where originally the Tripitaka presented by the Sung dynasty was preserved and the original translations took place. This is another mysterious spot which is extremely beautiful. So if ever anyone has a chance to travel there, although it's a little bit far away from Ningxia, you should definitely do that. Yeah, probably purifies karma like in no time. The so-called Shwanta, the paired pagodas, yeah, which is about, I would say, 50 kilometers from Ningxia, right in the mountains. Yeah, and that's my wife right here. So yeah, and another place where also a very substantial number of the important Buddhist text was recovered is this place, which is called Shazhugo. As you can see, yeah, the Mountain Mouth Gorge, yeah, that's right in there. The meditation caves, also quite broken down, one must admit, but several important texts were also recovered together with murals. And the final, of course, that's the famous one, the Baisugo, the square pagoda, yeah, because you can see it no longer exists. It no longer exists. It was demolished because there was an idea to build a road somewhere here. Now there is no pagoda, but the road isn't there either. So, but there was original excavation, and it also returned a variety of texts. So the thing is that if we look onto the Tangut heritage, textual heritage in general, I would say there is, it's difficult to do an exact calculation, but probably about 80% of what we have are the Buddhist texts. This doesn't really matter where the things were recovered. In Harajoto, or in Wei in Gansu province, or in one of those locations, or in another place which is also very mysterious. It's called the Green Town, Luichang. Yeah, this is something which is very hardly accessible for legitimate scholars, but for Lara Croft is very easily accessible for Lara Croft types. And so now on all those auctions of ancient books, we see quite a few of newly recovered Tangut texts being sold. And those are, of course, from that Luiz. I have never been there myself, so that's a dream of a lifetime that I might go there, but not sure if that's going to happen anytime soon. So there is no deficit. Yeah, there is no deficit of the Buddhist sources or of the religious sources whatsoever. The problem really is to how we integrate those things. Originally, what we can find out from the sources, and I have more or less a very little discussion of the traditional Chinese sources on Xixia here on the page 1 and 2. It's not complete, but it kind of gives an idea of what we have. Well, it's not my original research. It's based on works of other scholars, so but just for information. The thing is, however, that how do we really integrate those things? And my idea always was to try to actually locate those texts, yeah, mostly, because and the works of art which are connected with those within a bigger framework of East Asian Buddhism or East Asian religions on the one hand, and also with the Tangut own understanding of these things. Yeah, and if we examine the sources, specifically the Tangut law code, which we have, the Tianzhen law code, which we have discussed yesterday, and the preface, for example, to the 5 sounds, to the rhyme dictionary, which we have also mentioned yesterday, as well as the preface and the actual contents of the Shanli Yihai, of the Sea of Meanings established by the saints, as well as of several other texts. Yeah, then we will see that the Tanguts probably had a quite complex understanding of their, I would say, religion. If I would allow myself a little bit here, yeah. That is, if we look onto the Tangut materials, we can basically see, yeah, that there was a division. It's not something extraordinary, yeah, and from both Chinese or from Tibetan experience, we all know those things. There were 2 major categories, yeah. One was Nietzsche. It's very, very simplified transcription. Normally we translate it as Wangfa, the law of the king. Parallel to that, there was another category, which of course is Tachi. Which is Fofa. Yeah, so these 2. Now if we try to examine the texts which are now our disposal, the ones which we have, then we can be, there are also other categories, but these 2 are basic. Now this one is supposed to be on top, yeah, used to govern the universe as the whole, yeah, and this one is for the state, but it's also not as simple as that, yeah. So the law codes, all sorts of commandments, state regulations, they basically all fall into the category of the law of the kings. And then there is the law of the Buddha, which is composed of sutras, of also explanatory treatises, shastras, as well as other things too. So these are two things. But that's not the end of it. Because this particular character, which we is chi, yeah, is probably, at least this is what Nishida Tatsuo has once observed, is probably cognate with the Tibetan cho, dharma, the teaching. Yeah? So in many cases, this particular character is translated not as fa in the Chinese manner, but more as jiao, the teaching. And for that reason, in several Tangut texts, we have a category of sotya,